What's up, guys? Sin here. Today's the day I make the video I was trying to avoid making until I knew we had pretty much seen all that we've seen in Season of the Worthy. I'm not going to go super in depth with it. I don't hate the game, and you're not going to find me on the Destiny Sucks train with this video, but more so, just figured I'd give my thoughts and personal experiences based on what this started off as and what it became not too long after. Keep in mind, every single spring expansion in Destiny's history has had some sort of general issue surrounding it. Keep that in mind. This isn't out of the ordinary for the community, but though I have to admit, this may have been the roughest of them all. Destiny 2 Season of the Worthy dropped with probably one of the coolest trailers, following one of the most intense seasonal endings we've ever gotten, with Osiris seemingly starting to question Rasputin's intentions. This led to so much speculation in the community as to whether or not Rasputin was actually on our side, or not. You know, it was a cool story, right? Well, confliction within allies, to me, is a very cool story trope. Personally, it's one of my favorites. The beginning of the season, we see Zavala and Anna discover that the Almighty is on a crash course with Earth. And we need Rasputin. His name's Rasputin. That's his name. We need Rasputin's help to make the Almighty go pew-pew. And save the day. Pretty simple story, kind of cool. Along with this, Trials of Osiris returns. I was for sure excited for it. You know, I put a reaction video out there a while ago. Really cool. It got a lot of views. Thank you guys for that. That was actually really nice of you. But nostalgia's kind of a rope that burns quick at both ends. And at least on PC, it was met with rampant cheating, lack of meaningful gameplay that felt rewarding, and yeah. Now, I know all of this has been addressed in previous This Week at Bungie's. Bungie's working on it. Bungie's looking into some form of adept weapons as a reward. So that's not really what the topic of this video is about. But I can't even count it in this video, really, because this is about Season of the Worthy. And even though it did come in Season of the Worthy, it's considered Shadowkeep content. It's considered free-to-play content. You own Destiny. You can play Trials. You just need to beat the power requirement. Okay, maybe more on that in another video. I want to see how it progresses next season and where we're going with it. So on to the Worthy. Season starts, just a quick summary. Season starts, we go to Anna, and Anna says, Rasputin wants to talk to us. We go talk to Rasputin, and he sends us to go dust out his basement on the EDZ. Then the Moon, then Io, respectively, over the next month or so. So we go to the EDZ. Rasputin then tells us to go to the Seraph Towers. New public event. You pick thing up, throw it at thing. You do that so many times in the correct way, you'll win. Cool. So, that's fine. Maybe we can grind new weapons from there. Cool. So we go to the event. The event concludes. Regardless of winning or losing, we go back to where we just were. Back to the bunker. So, we clear out the bunker. We get dialogue from Anna and Zavala. Basically arguing. Cool. Conflict. Nice. Then the Legendary Lost Sector opens up. Kind of neat. I like the honestly, I did like the Legendary Lost Sectors, but they didn't feel really all that rewarding, and I didn't really feel like they had much of a place there. It was just kind of content for the sake of content, if that makes sense. So in the future, I'm not sure how they would really address something like that. So now all that's left to do is... All that's left to do is run bounties for the seasonal currency to unlock things in the Rasputin bunker to help you get more of the seasonal currency and the Seraph weapons, which are kind of cool. I mean, the Seraph weapons are cool. The Seraph mods are cool. The Seraph cells, or the Warmind cells, pretty neat stuff. I wish there would have been more of a focus on that, honestly. You know, so the gameplay loop spanned the greater part of the next month or so, without much else besides the Fourth Horseman exotic quest, which was a neat little quest, opening up Zavala's office, finding that it had been taken by Callus's, you know, traitorous daughter, whatever it might be. Then upon opening the Io bunker, we got an actually very cool thing. We got a conversation with Zavala and Rasputin. Probably one of the highlights of the season. And then we see the pyramid start to move closer week after week after week. However, we're not really engaging in that. We're kind of just watching it happen, while still doing the same things that we've been doing the entire past two to three seasons. And we didn't get the true next piece of the story until at least a month and a half into the season, unlike Season of Dawn, which had an ongoing narrative almost week to week. Personally, the game loop here is stale. I can't sugarcoat it. I can't pretend it's not. And honestly, I don't think that's due to bounty fatigue. I think it's due to bounties being the gameplay. Personally, I'm not a game developer, but I firmly believe that bounties have a place in Destiny. They do. They help you get an edge on power level. They can be good to farm materials and tokens. But as the primary means of gameplay for a season's PvE content that spans 3 months, it's not great gameplay in my opinion. The system is taken over as the primary gameplay mechanic for the season, causing it to go stale very quickly. Firmly believe this. I know the community has talked about this numerous times. Not trying to beat a dead horse, but just want to reaffirm that that was something that really turned me off to the season and had me taking larger breaks with the game, which is fine. You know, taking breaks from a game you play all the time, especially for content, it's good. It's good to do. It's good to do. Check out Final Fantasy XIV. What? Okay. Keep in mind, it is a $10 seasonal DLC. It's not meant to be as grandiose as a full Shadowkeep style expansion. But even more so, in Season of Dawn, we had a more interesting PvE experience that felt meaningful, and it felt like our Guardian was doing something meaningful. And I think that's important to a gameplay loop, that it feels meaningful. You know, I want to feel like I'm doing something. I want to feel like I'm progressing some kind of narrative along. That being said, remember when I mentioned the Almighty earlier? You may have forgotten about it, because in the game currently, there is absolutely nothing to remind you that the tower is supposedly facing impending doom and destruction. It just isn't there. We're 2 weeks away from the season ending, and we haven't had any kind of progression as to how close it's getting, where it's currently sitting at, and what we're going to do about it. It's all kind of being done in the backdrop, and our Guardian isn't really front and center with that solution. So to me, in my opinion, this piece of storytelling kind of flopped in a major way. I never once felt that the stakes were raised. I never once as a Guardian felt like we were in any real danger. Kind of a bummer, because that's a really cool piece of the story. The bunkers are cool. They're insanely cool looking. You know, I know a lot of time goes into making these things. I know a lot of work, artist work, developer work, all of that goes into making these things possible. I understand that. And at the end of the day, you know, it's still in the game, and it's still something that's very cool and unique to the game. You know, I love Destiny scenery. I love all of that. It's great stuff. But the lore behind it all is extremely riveting, and it's just not there. Or at least it's not there in the same capacity as it was during Season of Dawn. The Fellwinter's Lie quest was undoubtedly the highlight of this entire season. 2 weeks before the season ends, and while met with controversy, ended up being one of my favorite revelations in the game's history so far. Game's history being Destiny 2. Alas, it pains me to think that with the focus shifting to the impending darkness arrival, that we may never really feel any repercussions of this. Though, yeah, that might be a thought that might be expanded on in the future. Like, how does Anna feel about all this? How does Zavala feel? How does Saladin feel, knowing that his brothers and sisters kind of died for nothing, all because of Rasputin? The lore nut in me just needs to know. I need to know these things. It's the smaller details that make everything come together. So this was a thread that could have been closely followed all throughout the season, but just now arrives really close to the end, and I mean like scrapingly close to the end. So what I'm saying is I would like to see Bungie in the future with these seasons focus more on the story aspects if the gameplay is not going to be there. And by gameplay, I mean like a PvE activity or some kind of loop. If it's not going to be there, maybe fill the gaps with some kind of story elements if possible. I know Bungie's working on a smaller team than they were when they were working with Activision. However, it's just something that I feel like would be the nice little cherry on top that could be season saving, honestly. Destiny's world is so rich with the stories to tell that it feels like an injustice to save the best and only real ones for the end, as an almost afterthought. Guardian games, I don't really have much to say about Guardian games. I wish I did, but everybody knows how that went. Not talking about it. On to aspirational activities. Grandmaster Nightfalls. So it's no secret that Destiny's currently hurting for reasons to grow your power levels beyond unfathomable proportions. At the beginning of Shadowkeep, we were given the new artifact system, which allowed players to infinitely increase their power levels beyond the hard cap. Given the size of the seasonal model, I wouldn't expect a raid or even a dungeon. Okay, maybe a small dungeon, may not be asking too much. I don't know. I'm not a game developer, so I can't really say that, though. If possible, I feel like that would be the kind of lore and gameplay cherry on top that maybe in the future we could see more of. I don't know. The solution this season was a new Nightfall the Ordeal difficulty that you could only do if you were 1025 plus. Great, a challenging difficulty mode for Nightfalls. And I mean challenging. Like, these things are brutal if you have a team that doesn't entirely know or can use the meta. So that's good. It's challenging content, right? But the rewards are the same as any other Nightfall, with arguably way less of a grind. If you do all 6, you get a seal and a title that no doubt will be revered and looked at as a true accomplishment. Honestly, if you get all those done and you have Conqueror, like, more power to you. You are a way better player than me, obviously. I mean that genuinely, because that's the aspirational content that's there, and you did it, so congrats. But I'm personally someone that likes to play with incentive. If I'm not going after something, that I can feel, and this might come off as a little entitled, if I'm not going after something that I can feel, I don't feel like I'm really doing anything. I don't feel like my time is being spent well. So with that, I consciously sat it out. And no big deal. I know a lot of other players have. I know a lot of other players haven't even reached 1025, myself included, based on the grind that was available to us this season. But that was the primary backbone of aspiration this season, aside from raids and the weekly pit run. Cool. But that leaves me to my conclusion, guys. Next season, I know, and I have to believe that next season big things are coming. I have to temper my expectations, but I have a good feeling that the summer DLC that leads into the fall is going to be meaningful. It's going to at least have great story beats. At this point, a lot of the community is feeling burnt in many directions. If I wasn't honest about my feelings on it, then I couldn't be honest with my community. The Destiny community and Bungie, whom I'm sure is going through a very hard time right now, adjusting and dealing with being 100% remote. Honestly, for a game developer, an independent game developer nonetheless, that's a feat of itself. I respect them for keeping the lights on throughout all of this. I respect them for the communication they've been giving us the past couple weeks, especially in the TWABs. And they still give us a place to go spend time with our friends. And I think that's still, despite this season's downfalls, is important to remember. You know, we're only as good as the community we build. We're only as good as the community we foster. So having a place to be able to go spend time with your friends, especially during these very weird and uncertain times, it's a nice thing to have. It's a nice thing to have. So, leads me to my last point. Bungie always bounces back, guys. You know, things are difficult right now, but they always bounce back after hard bouts. I remember House of Wolves into Taken King. I remember Warmind into Forsaken. Bungie always finds a way to bounce back after some very rough bouts, okay? you could argue and say that maybe this is not good that they go through these bouts, but we have to trust the process here. And if we can't, then it might be time to move on. It might be time to move on to other games, other things, and then come back to it later. And that's completely okay. You know? I just trust that they will try their best to learn from this. And that's about the most any creator can do. That's about the most any player can do. That's about the most anybody could ask. We're a community. We can trust the process. And if you don't want to, like I said, that's completely fine. But remember, guys, we're all in this together. All right, I'm done. Anyways, if you guys like this video, you can find me at twitch.tv/SinTrigger96 on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, typically from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And help me hit 1K on Twitter as well, if you'd like, over at Sin on Twitch. Love yins. From his guest bedroom of style, it's Sin.